Yeah. So thanks, Beatrice. Like you earlier said, you're very correct. But now we'll move more into it as well. Like I told you, it was something that came out of the ILO,
That's a long.
and we can see it. Like I said, we can see it also on the screen. Who the ILO is, they are also like an international labor organization, and it's part of the UN agency, and it's more of coming together and really saying what's really going on with the seafarers on board, what's really not giving them a good right of living and a good right to really work on board as well. What's happening to their welfare? Is anybody actually looking after their welfare? Are shipping companies, are they treating them right? If they're treating them right, who is really enforcing this right to make sure that all seafarers are really treated with utmost respect? So then we move on to bringing out the implementation, but also the compliance of it. I've got Captain Tolu in the house who was ready to take us on the lecture today. Um, I'm just gonna ask, are you ready, Captain Tolu? All right, I will continue, and when Captain Tolu is ready, I will hand over to him. Moving on, we're going to go straight down to the definitions of the MLC. I'll just move my slide down to the left. So we can see also in the screen the background of this MLC, and it's been, apart from even this one that I put down here, it's been a case of there have been so many depressions. When I mean depressions, there's so many cases where the health, I mean even the safety and the seafarers working and living conditions on board were bad. Their wages were bad. There was no one really, looking after their wages. And sometimes they can even stay on board the ship for years, leading to, all kind of, depression and several kind of things that even I myself cannot mention. Unfortunately, to be honest, this is still, ongoing, honestly, and yeah, it is not a news. So I can say it out in social media, which me myself, I've also started working with a non-governmental organization in trying to enforce that flag states really, look into it. But I must really applaud the ILO and the MLC of most flag states, most, not all flag states, on the compliance and the enforcement of this. So you could just imagine that if this was left, unnoted, or if this was just left carelessly, there will be so many cases that we ourselves we would just be discouraged when we are seafarers going on the ship. We will now break this down into seeing more. What is this MLC? What does it really entail? But still on this slide I tried to put here, you could see it that this kind of stuff normally leads down to human error as well. Leads to human error. When I mean human error, based on what I first tried by trying to let you know, staying on board for too long, wages are not paid, families are not in good order, and we need to know also that going through and studying the International Safety Management Code, and you will really see that more than 80% of the marine accidents are caused by human error, and some percentage of those kind of human error comes from this kind of situations where seafarers find themselves. And this is one of the reasons why, the ILO and the International Maritime Organization said, no, let's look into this. Let's look into this stuff. And let's try and break this down. Let's try and make things really easy for everyone. Coming to ratifications of this MLC took time. Countries were coming into it. As of the time of this survey, 2019, we now have 104 countries. I'm looking for my country. I've seen it. We have 104 countries ratified to comply with the Maritime Labour Convention. And like I said, all these countries, yeah, the ratification of MLC has gone wide, but I must really say it's not really everyone who is really enforcing it as it should be. To be honest, I would really like us to really try and get the background, what led to MLC. I think that would be a question next week, because it's not a popular question though, but I've started seeing what led to MLC, what brought about the idea of MLC, and that's why I'm trying to really make you to see the countries that have not been ratified. You can still see some countries that, as of the time of this report, that have still not been ratified as well. I'm glad my country is not there. But these are the ones who, for some reason, as flag states, they also have their own way of looking after seafarers' rights, which is unknown. But you can see 91 countries, they are just not into the Maritime Labour Convention as well. So now let's dig into what this MLC complies with. But just for us to know that there's a general obligation, and every member, that's the 109 countries as of 2019, I'll need to check how many now, that ratified, undertakes to give complete effect to provisions, to everything included in this provision, in order to secure the right of all seafarers to decent employment. When I mean to decent employment, there are cases where seafarers are just signed on board without a proper SEA. And when I mean SEA, that's the Seafarers Engagement Agreement. The seafarers are just being signed without the right of work, there's no proper minimum age. There are some countries, I don't want to go into mentioning countries, but you see seafarers who are less than 15 or 16 years coming down on board and working without extra proper care on board. And this is why this MLC really trying to come into place and set minimum age, which we will still go into, set minimum age, and even ages between 16 and 18, they will also go through excess, or let me say extra procedures. When I mean extra procedures, that will be extra hours of work and rest, which we will still go into at the same time. The members will be cooperating with each other for the purpose of ensuring effective implementation and enforcement. So yeah, so Nigeria is there, United Kingdom is there. Both of them must always work together, especially if we have, if you do a PSC, which is a posted control in Nigeria, they will check for the MLC. You do it in United Kingdom, they will also check for MLCs, especially if they are ratified as well. Now, coming down to definitions, I'm not going to go on this first one, which is something I will leave it for anyone who is still new to the maritime industry. But this is where I'm going to just... Is everybody seeing my screen here? Seafarers' employment and social rights. Now, every seafarer, everyone has the right to a safe and secure workplace that complies with safety standards. Every seafarer has the right to a safe and secure workplace that complies with safety standards. We all have, it's our right to have a safe and a secure. And there's a reason why I'm really stressing this. I'm really stressing this because, unfortunately, we are now confined to an idea where we get on a ship, it is not safe, it is not secure, there is no enough safety standard, and we just have to comply. And we just have to comply. This is what the MLC, and it's very, very important for every seafarer to know their own right. And that's why I said, unfortunately, it's not the seafarers who are supposed to enforce the Maritime Labour Convention, but the seafarers themselves are supposed to be aware and know the reporting procedure, which at the end is either me or Captain Tango or whoever will take the end of this series of lecture, must be able to highlight how a seafarer will go about in reporting their rights to the appropriate authorities. So for instance, there are ships where they do not comply, they do not take safety practice very serious. And that's not because they do not want to, but because they are not getting enough support from the shore. And when I mean from the shore, for instance, we have no enough safety boots. So you are now led, and to be honest, yeah, I've been, should I say, a victim of being a culprit. My first vessels as on tankers was, oil tankers in, we call that place Lagos Outside Bar, where there was no even we are not even talking of enough safety standard. There was zero safety practice observed. And during cargo operation, you will see us with Dunlop slippers. You see, even the ones that have safety boots, with their mouths already opening, no shoelace, no adults, and all those stuff like that. So the seafarers are now being drawn into working in such extreme dangerous conditions just because they have found themselves to say, oh, I just need the money, I do not need to report. And even if I report, who will hear my cry? So that's why it's now like a plea. When seafarers see this thing, they know what the right things to do, they've made the complaints, and they just don't know yet how to channel it and how to fight for it. But knowing our rights this evening, it's the first step. And like I said, before the end of this series of class, everyone should now be able to be aware. And if it means even dropping numbers to know how to really channel, it's not reporting, but it's really trying to enforce that, no, these practices are being put in convention in our own country as well, Nigeria, and I'm sure every country that is represented here in this class and in the video, anybody watching, might have been ratified to be able to know how to channel it to the right place. Every seafarer has a right to a safe and secure workplace that complies with safety standards. 2, every seafarer has a right to fair terms of employment. And we will go straight into that in the next slide. Every seafarer has a right to fair terms of employment. And fair terms of employment, that is when, especially if you are going for your orals, an MC examiner in UK or in Nigeria, they will ask you, what do you understand by a seafarer's engagement agreement? That's SEA. As seafarers here, I need you to understand that you should not go on board without looking properly at your SEA. Me, previously, out of ignorance, I normally just have this pidgin language. Thank God, I go on board, I come and sign paper, and I just open it down to where the signature is. And I'm sure I'm not the only culprit here. We have so many people here also. You just open it down to where, or sometimes they will say, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. No, there are so many things that are embedded in the seafarers engagement agreement. And it's not till 2015 when I was asked, have you signed a seafarers engagement agreement before? Yes, sir. That was Ora's question. Okay, what's contained in it? And I started looking left, right, and center. Okay, my name is in it, my date of birth, but I knew I was not giving the right answers. So when the examiner finished, this is not just about exam, he told me. This is about you knowing what should be in your seafarers engagement agreement. Because why? Every seafarer has a right to fair terms of employment. Your own employment should not, your own terms and conditions should not be a terms and condition that it should be based on, oh, you just need to manage it and go on board. Um, I learned something from Captain Tayo some years ago, and that day I was just laughing. Now he's the one who just typed something, and he did something, and he said, "Oh, I looked at every single wordings of my contract, and this is one of the few people I know they will look at every wording." And you know what? And he sent it back to the company. I want this clause, this clause, this clause, this clause corrected. Yeah, I know some HR will be like, this one is too much of something, but no, that is how even we ourselves, I know, yes, we might say I'm speaking too much, or you might not be put in such a situation where you'll be determining the terms and conditions. No, the MLC has given you that right. This time you need to understand it. You need to understand why this is there. You need to understand why that is there. I'm not going to mention names, but I know there are some countries, they will tell you there are tax of so are going to be deducted. But when you now ask for tax returns for cases where, you need it in applying or setting up a company and the government is asking for tax return and there is zero. I know of companies where the pensions are deducted, but you have no pension sitting in your account when you are old. But the thing is, the seafarers just do not mind this. This is situations where we all need ourselves to put work into it. I'm just gonna pause in this number 2 here and hand over to Captain Tolu to continue from the point 3. Captain Tolu, are you there?
Yes, Captain Falabi, I'm here with you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll just hand over to you to continue. Where I stopped was point 2, and which is every seafarer has a right to fair terms of employment.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain Falabi. And my sincere apologies. I tried logging in, but I had some network issues. Okay, Captain Afolabi, I don't know if you don't mind. I would like to share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
So I can, we're in page 34. Okay. Okay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. And
I'm not sure we can see your screen yet. Yes, we're seeing it now. Yeah,
okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, and once again, my sincere apologies for being late. Okay, I'll just take off from where Captain Afolabi just stopped. Every seafarer has the right to fair term of employment. I believe he has explained that, and I need you guys to understand this is just the introductory part we are trying to go through about MLC. We'll still get into the convention itself, and every seafarer has the right to decent working and living condition on board. This is self-explanatory, but I need you all to understand that under the MLC convention, you have a right. It's your right, okay, to a decent working and living condition. And what does that mean? Generally, it means where your accommodation, your general living atmosphere, and your working atmosphere must be safe for you to work. You understand? Your tools and everything you require for this job must be available. And it's one of the aspects where you see MLC and sometimes ISM kind of integrate each other. You understand? And when you talk about decent working and living condition, you have to know this. So whenever you go on board a vessel and the living condition is not conducive for you, you need to understand that you have the MLC. You can quote the MLC, and this must be addressed. Okay, number 4 point is every seafarer has a right to health protection, Medicare, welfare measures, and other form of social protection. It's also self-explanatory, but I need you to understand that health protection while on board, Medicare while on board, welfare while on board, it's very, very important. It's very, very important. And in most cases, you also have some nice companies that make this they follow this MLC convention to the core, and they make sure that even when, if you're on a rotation, maybe a 2 month on, a 2 month off rotation, you also have, you understand, this Medicare, and you have some welfare package for you even when you're off. So you need to understand that you need, under the MLC convention, your health, okay? There should be an health protection scheme for you. There should also be a Medicare package for you, and your welfare measures and other social protections. Social protections too also, most of all these developed countries, they practice all these for seafarers, you understand? You have some kind of social protections, like maybe, let's say, countries that do with providing some kind of entitlements and some other things for seafarers, and some, some value added stuffs for seafarers. So you should all understand this aspect of the MLC, and this aspect falls under the seafarers employment and your rights, your social rights. Then each member shall ensure within the limits of the jurisdiction that the seafarers employment and social rights set out in the preceding paragraph of the article are fully implemented. So when it talks about each member, what's it saying? It's saying that each member, that the countries that Captain Afolabi explained to us, about 104 countries, okay, that ratified the convention and they are complying. Okay, so they are the ones they refer to as each members in this aspect. So under the implementation and enforcement responsibility, each member shall implement and enforce laws and regulations or other measures that it has adopted to fulfill its commitments under this convention to express to ships. So what are they talking about? They're talking about the implementation and enforcement responsibility. So your company should also implement, you understand, even you on the ship should implement, and you also have some implementation. For instance, like in Nigeria now, you talk about NIMASA. In NIMASA can implement this MLC, because Nigeria is also one of the member states for the MLC convention. So you need to understand that each member shall implement and enforce laws and regulations. So we'll get into details of all this when we get to the convention generally. Okay, then each member shall effectively exercise his jurisdiction and control over ships that fly its flag by establishing a system for ensuring compliance. So what does that mean? If your vessel is it's a Nigerian flag vessel, okay, NIMASA should have a measure, you understand, of enforcing, okay, a system of enforcing compliance to MLC. And some of these measures is by having a regular inspection, okay, reporting systems and legal proceedings under the law. So, and some of the measures is measures that maybe some of you know about your DMLC. So when we get fully, you understand what it means, DMLC. Okay, there's a DMLC part 1 and part 2. So generally, what this means is that the part 2, when we get to there, you understand better, is that there are some measures that are put in place, okay, from the part 1 that, let's say, your flag state has put in place some measures and they expect your company to comply with it. So what he's saying is that the flag state should have a means of ensuring compliance, okay, to the MLC convention. So it's not just about your vessel complying to MLC, and it's not just about NIMASA, for instance. I'm using NIMASA onto a Nigerian flag vessel, issuing a certificate. It means they also have to regularly come to your vessel. So whenever you see NIMASA inspectors or come on board your vessel and they say they are from the MLC department and everything, you should understand that this is the requirement as per the MLC convention, and it's also a requirement as per the implementation and enforcement responsibility. So each member shall ensure that ships that fly its flag carry a maritime labor certificate and a declaration of maritime labor compliance as required by the convention. Okay, the DMLC I was just talking about, that's declaration of maritime labor compliance. Okay, under the end, we'll get to the certification aspect and you will understand this, but you need to understand that for a vessel who is flying a member, okay, a member state under the MLC, that's a country that's ratified the convention for the MLC, okay, if you understand that for that kind of vessel, you are required to carry an MLC certificate and a declaration of maritime labor compliance. And this declaration of maritime labor compliance falls under part 1 and part 2. So we will get to that aspect, we'll get there. So just trying to brief so that we can go into the main MLC. Okay, a ship to which convention applies may, in accordance with the international law, be inspected by a member, okay, other than the flag state when the ship is in one of its ports to determine whether the ship is in compliance. So what's this saying generally? Just what it's saying in short is, okay, your vessel is a Nigerian flag vessel, which is a member state under the MLC. Your vessel, a Nigerian flag vessel, goes to a port in UK, maybe a port in Aberdeen, for instance, which is also a member state. Okay, what he's saying in this aspect is that the UK has the right, okay, to inspect your vessel whenever your vessel is in their port. It has the right to carry out an MLC inspection because your vessel coming to their country is a member state and the UK is also a member state. So that's what this part is also trying to explain. Okay, so another point here is each member shall effectively exercise his jurisdiction and control if these are established in territory. So what means that it says a Nigerian flag vessel in a UK port, okay, has the right to exercise her jurisdiction and control over the seafarer's recruitment and placement service when she's in the UK. Then another point here is each member shall prohibit violation of the requirements of the convention and shall, in accordance with international law, establish sanctions. So what I was just saying is that when there is a breach in MLC during the inspection, okay, sanctions and sanctions and detentions, depending on the level of breach or non-conformities or non-compliance, can be issued to your vessel, to your company. So you can go as far as even detaining your vessel. If, for instance, your vessel is another member state port and then on notice a major non-compliance or non-conformity, non-conformity is detected as per the MLC, okay, they can sanction your vessel. Breach of MLC. So each member shall implement its responsibility under the convention in such a way as to ensure that ships that fly their flag for any state as not to activate the convention do not receive more favorable treatment than the ships that fly. Okay, so what is this trying to say is, what it's trying to say is, if, for instance, you're flying a flag, okay, your vessel has not ratified the convention, and you come to a UK port, as a UK port that's ratified the convention, okay, you do not receive any favorable treatment because of the fact that you are not flying, your flag is not in compliance. Doesn't mean when you're in UK, you receive any favorable treatment. You'll be treated the same way a flag state that's ratified the convention will be treated. So that's in terms of maybe breach of or non-conformity or major non-conformities. So regulations part A and B of the code. Okay, let me just go to the key points. Now regulation part A and part B. Okay, this is just the introductory part. I would like to take us straight up to the convention itself. And okay. Captain Afolabi, please, can you confirm you're seeing my screen? Changing the.
Yeah, we are seeing your screen.
Okay. Now, so this is the Maritime Labor Convention, okay, 2006 as amended. Just had to skip the introductory part and let us just get into the convention. I need you all to understand that whatever item we are using for study here, it's an item that has been either downloaded from the site, so giving acknowledgement to the parties that are taking their time to write this online for us to use. So the key point in this aspect I need you to understand is MLC, Maritime Labor Convention, and you might be asked generally, or one thing you really need to know about the Maritime Labor Convention is that you have, that's for a member, a vessel that is compliant, okay? You need to know that you have to have a copy of this MLC on board. And how do you know if your vessel is compliant? You know because you find your vessel has to have the MLC certificate and the declaration of maritime labor compliance. That's the part 1 and part 2. So now we are going into the MLC convention itself. And it's, remember, I need us to understand that this convention is broken into 5 titles. Some people say 5 parts, but you need to understand that the MLC has 5 titles. Title 1 is the minimum requirement for seafarer to work on ship. Title 2 is the condition of employment. 3 is the accommodation, recreational facilities, food and catering. 4 is the health protection, Medicare, welfare, social security protection. 5 is compliance and enforcement. And if you remember, during the introductory part, we talked mostly about all this, but now we are going in depth. I need us to just pay attention and understand this, that the MLC generally is for we seafarers, it's for our own rights. MLC really is not for the company, it's not for the flag state, it's because of we the seafarers, okay? We've had so many issues of seafarers, treated in a very bad condition. You have vessels go abroad for one reason or the other, the vessel is detained and you go abandoned there. You have situations whereby you're on board and your company doesn't even care. You're left on board for months. You have people left on board for months. You have vessels that get arrested overseas, vessels that, 1 or 2 things just go wrong and the seafarers are not repatriated, they are not brought back home. Seafarers don't have any employment agreement. For instance, maybe you sign off, the company might decide not to pay you, or they don't pay you the required salary, okay? So that's these are the points that brought about the MLC. So now MLC is trying to break everything down for us to understand in titles. And we start with title 1, the minimum requirement for a seafarer to work on a ship. So if you've been asked, for instance, in your orals, for instance, and they say, okay, can you tell me some of the requirements for a seafarer to work on ship? They are not just asking you what certificates do a seafarer have to carry to work on ship. You know that the surveyor is just trying to take you to the MLC section, okay? Or if a surveyor tells you, oh, can you explain to me what you understand by MLC or the content of MLC? These are what is expected of you to say, okay? Minimum requirements. We start with what? The first thing is the minimum age. Now, what is the minimum age of a seafarer to go to sea? You might be asked, anybody can ask you this question in your exam. Now, what is the minimum age to go to sea? So we're going to reference everything as per MLC. It's black and white, for us to see. So the minimum age to go to sea, we'll start with here. No person below the minimum age shall be employed or engaged to work on a ship. The minimum age at the time of initial entry of this convention, 2006, is what? 16 years. And why did you say this? Because remember, it's MLC as amended. What that amended means is that MLC Convention 2006 doesn't mean it's just going to stick with everything of 2006. It means they amend them, could be yearly. You could decide there's a revision or something they want to add, okay? And when this is added, that's why you have as amended. So as a seafarer, okay, as an officer to be, you need to understand something, that word as amended. What as amended generally means for us as seafarers and OW to be officers, it means that a regulation was put in place at a particular time, or an amendment, or okay, let's say something okay, let's just say a statement was put in place as at 2006. As amended means that if a sitting has been carried out by the member states and a revision has been carried out, they can say, okay, as amended to what year? To year 2020. So you could have an amendment for 2020 that most of our conventions, our code, even our certificates, that's why most of our certificates now as amended. So that's just by the way. Now, no person below the minimum age shall be employed. The minimum age, 16 years. Okay, a higher minimum age shall be required in the circumstance set in the code. Now, what is this saying? It's saying that a person below the age of 16 cannot be engaged or work on a ship. And a person below the ages of 16 is prohibited from what? Carrying out any night work. You need to understand all these. Some of these are questions that are being asked in hours. Believe me, during my achievement, for instance, I remember I was asked, what's the minimum age? And they said, what are, okay, tell me some of the jobs that are prohibited, a young person, that's the word they use. Okay, so you need to understand something, that minimum age is 16, and a person within this age of 16, okay, to less than 18 cannot work at night. Okay, night work of seafarer under 18 shall be prohibited. And when you are asked, what do you understand by nights in an exam? Okay, you need to understand that night covers the period of at least 9 hours, starting no later than midnight and ending no earlier than 5 a.m. These are keywords. That's why I'm reading it out to you guys. Because an examiner, a surveyor asks you, what do you understand by night? Don't just tell, sir, from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. No, you have to answer with, that's some level of competency. Night, as per the NLC, okay, is defined, you understand, as a period of at least 9 hours, no later than midnight, and ending not earlier than 5 a.m. Okay, so these are the keywords I just want us to understand. Then from the ages of 18 and above,
Sir, please excuse me.
you can be allowed. Can you come back?
Excuse me. Yes, is your screen stopped, like it's not changing, or is it my own that is not changing? Because the page I am seeing is just the limit on hours of work arrest shall be as follows.
Okay, break with you. Captain, follow me.
Yeah, Captain Tango, that is what is showing
Hello.
on my side as well.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, come again. What's showing? What's showing here is the hours of work and rest.
The page I have been on is the limit on hours of work and rest shall be as follows. So
Captain Tolu, that's what I'm saying now. What are you trying to share?
No, I'm not trying to share anything. I just
No, yeah.
No,
not you. I mean Captain Tolu. Captain Tolu, which slide are you trying to share? What page? Captain Tolu?
Okay, can you see the screen now? Okay, if you have to work on the ship, Okay, let me share. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
I think it will load. It's not loaded, sir.
It's not yet. Urban now.
Yes, sir, it's loading.
Okay, it's loading. Okay, me, I can see now.
Can you see minimum requirement for a seafarer to work on the ship?
Yes, yeah. That
Okay,
was
so yeah, sorry about that. I think it's a network from you. You know how it is now. So,
okay, sir.
yeah. Okay, thanks for bringing that up because I was just moving. Okay, so you need to just understand the minimum requirement, minimum age to work on a ship is 16 years. And from the ages of 16 years to the ages below 18 years, you are considered a young person as per MLC. You're considered a young person, and it's a young person under the MLC. You are prohibited from carrying out night work. And the word night under the MLC convention, it's a period of at least 9 hours, okay? Starting no later than midnight and ending no earlier than 5 a.m. So you need to understand that aspect. Okay, you need to also understand that the employment and engagement of a seafarer under the ages of 18, okay, shall be prohibited where the work is likely to jeopardize the health or safety of that person. So what is it saying? It's saying generally, if you're being asked, who do you understand as a young person under MLC? A young person is a person within the ages of 16 and below the age of 18. And as per the MLC, if you still also ask, okay, what responsibilities or what responsibilities cannot be, what job cannot be given to a young person? Or you have a young person on board your ship, can you explain what kind of jobs that person cannot do on board? So you have to explain that this person cannot carry out a night work, okay? And what do you understand by the night period? You have explained that earlier. And a young person cannot be given any job that will jeopardize their health or safety. But there's also one clause generally under this night work. A young person generally, okay, can only, I need to understand, he cannot carry out any night work, but for purpose of his training, there's always a clause that says for purpose of his training. So what does that mean? You have a cadet, for purpose of his training, you can decide, as long as it doesn't jeopardize his health and his safety, you can decide to bring him to the bridge at night just to familiarize him, you understand, with maybe night watch keeping and stuff like that. Not to carry out a night work, but for familiarization purpose, for purpose of his what? Training. You understand? For purpose of his training, as long as that familiarization or that task does not jeopardize his or her health or safety. You need to understand that. So from the ages of 18 and above, you are considered, let's say, not adult, but you are graduated from being a young person on board. Then another thing under this is the medical certificate. I was talking about minimum requirements, okay, for a seafarer to work on a ship, which is Title 1. We're through with the first part, which is the minimum age. The next one is the medical certificate. So as per MLC, a seafarer shall not work on a ship unless the person is certified medically fit to work on the ship. And when it talks about medical fit, that's why we have the medical fitness certificates that we have when we go on board. We have to do before going on board, which comprises our fitness, eyesight, hearing, night vision, and all those tests that is being carried out. So I need you to understand too that you may be asked the validity, okay, of a seafarer's medical fitness certificate. Validity is 2 years, but remember, it's also subject to certain clause. Most medical fitness certificate, I'm trying to get the point where it's clearly written for you guys, is 2 years. Well, there are certain ages, I think from 60 and above, or with any seafarer with any medical condition, okay, there are certain times some clauses are included in their medical certificates. So you can see someone with a medical fitness certificate with a 1-year validity. Okay, so it's not doesn't mean that everybody has to be 2 years. Okay, it's a medical certificate shall be valid for a maximum period of 2 years unless the seafarer is under the age of 18. So under the age of 18, remember we're talking about a young person. So a young person Okay, medical fitness is only valid for 1 year. And the certification of color vision shall be valid for a maximum period of 6 years. That's just the color vision test. Okay. Now, there's also another clause under the medical fitness certificate. It says an urgent case. In an urgent case, a competent authority may permit. Remember, it asks you have to get the permission of either your flag state or the port state. Okay, may permit a seafarer to work without a valid medical fitness certificate until the vessel arrives the next port of call where the seafarer can obtain the certificate from a qualified medical practitioner. Okay, the period of such permission does not exceed 3 months. I have situations whereby seafarers will come on board and their medical fitness expires on one. They tell you, oh, yes, even if you are on board, you have 3 month extension. You have 3 months. There's no NMLC that says you have 3 month extension. Okay, it says in urgent cases, the competent authority, okay, may permit. So it's not you permitting, it's a competent authority permitting, you understand, or permitting a seafarer or a competent authority can allow the extension of your medical fitness for a maximum of 3 months till you arrive the next port of call. Okay, if the period of validity of a certificate expires in the course of the voyage, the certificate shall come in force, shall continue in force until the next port of call where seafarer can obtain a medical certificate from a medical person. So what this says, for those of us that always believe if you're on board and your medical fitness certificate expires, you have 3 months. No, it only says during a voyage, if your medical fitness expires, the medical fitness certificate is still valid until you arrive your next port of call. As soon as you arrive your next port of call, it's expected of you to proceed, okay, and take another medical fitness, okay, carry out another medical test and return from a qualified medical practitioner, and a new medical fitness certificate be issued to you. So the medical certificate for seafarers working on a ship ordinary engaged on international voyage must be a minimum be provided in English. So most of our medical fitness certificate, you see them in English. And for those that are not in English, you have the translation, you understand, in English. So it's all MLC bringing about this. So that's major aspect about the medical certificates. Okay. Another aspect, remember we're still under regulation 1, is the training and qualification. To work on a ship generally, or the minimum requirements for you to work on a ship, you must have what? Undergone training and some qualification. So what does that mean? Our basic safety training, okay, that's your STCW, your security awareness, all those your STCW training and stuff like that, including your COC and everything. So these are the requirements. You need to know that for you to work on board, you must have undergone the training and you have the qualification for that position to go on board or to work on board the ship. Then you have the recruitment and placement. As per the MLC brought about the recruitment and placement to ensure that seafarers have access to efficient and well-regulated seafarer recruitment and placement system. We've had issues where shipping companies are the one recruiting and carrying out placement for their crew in the past, and they found out that because most of these shipping companies do have this power, and some companies still do that, that once your flag state approves of you and you have the license, fine, you can do. But what this is just trying to say is that there must generally be a well-regulated seafarers recruitment and placement system. So even if your company wants to be the one recruiting, they don't want to use a recruitment agency, so the MLC, and they have to, before they can be issued the license to recruit and carry out placement, they have to have a well-regulated recruitment and placement system in place, which the flag states definitely we have to vet before issuing the manning agency certificate. So all you need to know about this is all seafarers have access to an efficient, adequate, and accountable system for finding and employment on board ship without charge to the seafarer. Remember, without charge to the seafarer. It's just unfortunate that some countries will and some agencies will tell you, you have to pay me this, you have to pay me that. All you need to know is that whoever you're paying for any job due to the circumstance of or whatever you're facing to get the job, you need to know that whoever you are paying, it's illegal, and you are doing that at your own risk. MLC has clearly stated it, that when finding employment on board a ship without charge to the seafarer, seafarer recruitment and placement service operating in member territory shall conform to the standards set in the code. So they must all comply with this code requirement, MLC code. Each member state shall require, in respect of seafarers who work on ship that fly, that ship owners who use seafarers recruitment and placement services that are based in countries or territory in which the convention does not apply, ensure that those services conform to the requirements set out in the code. So what was this saying? Your country, let's say your vessel's flag and owner, it's a Nigerian flag vessel, and Nigeria is in compliance, and your vessel is operating in a country or in a port where the port state, that's the flag, of that port, has not ratified the MLC convention. What this is saying generally is that you, as the company, you have to make sure that whatever seafarer recruitment and placement agency you are using, even if the seafarers recruitment and placement agency is in a country that has not ratified the convention, they must confirm, they must comply with the requirement of MLC. In as long as the vessel is operating in a port in a country that's not ratified, but the vessel's flag ratified the convention, whichever seafarers recruitment and placement agency you are using in that country that has not ratified the convention must comply with the code, because this seafarer recruitment placement agency is working under you, and you are in compliance. You have ratified the convention, so they must also comply with the requirement of the code. So then the recruitment and placement agency goes a long way, and because of time, I need us to just when you get on board or anything, you just go through the MLC. We can't read everything through, we can't explain everything through, but you need to understand so many key points, especially in this aspect. One other aspect is okay, you just need to understand that this aspect of MLC is very wide, and if I'm to start going through everything, I'm just trying to get the key points here. Okay, but generally just understand that whichever recruitment and placement agency that is being used by your company has to be in compliance with what this MLC code. It has to be in compliance with this MLC code. So then that's about the Title 1, and I will just give a brief discussion about Title 2 and I'll call it a day. So remember, Title 1 is what? The minimum requirement for seafarer to what? Work on a ship. And what does it talk about? It talks about the minimum age, talks about medical certificates. What else does it talk about after minimum age and medical certificate? Can anybody help me with that? Minimum age, medical certificate. Okay, if you know, training and what?
Qualification.
Training and qualification. That's 1 point. And the last point?
Recruitment and placement.
Very good. So you see, gradually we are beginning to understand all this. So when you've come about all this, now Title 1 is now assumed that yes, your minimum age, you are in compliance, you have your medical fitness certificate, you have your training and qualification, and you'll be able to get a recruitment and placement agency, which is more or less the steps we follow when let's say you want to join the Marine. These are more or less the steps we follow. Then now you've gotten a recruitment and placement agency. Let's say the agency has started, communicating with you about a job offer and everything. So what's the next thing that comes to your mind? The next thing that comes to your mind is seafarer's employment agreement, which falls under the condition of employment. So once an agency has started talking with you, so
Is it just me, or is anybody here, Captain Tolu?
No, I think he has network issues.
Network issues. Yeah, I agree as well. He's going to join back in, but I guess we'll just be wrapping up for this part one. And like I said, it's going to be a series of lectures on the MLC. Captain Tolu and Captain Tolu, we started with the introductory class, and the introductory was based on what brought about MLC and Title 1. Can anybody remind me what's the Title 1 of the MLC? Anyone? What's the chapter 1 we just talked about today?
Minimum measure.
What? Come again, don't be afraid. Just tell me what you say.
I think it talks about the minimum age or so.
Minimum requirement.
Oh, sorry, minimum requirement.
Minimum requirement for seafarers to work on board. So for you to be qualified for this MLC rights itself, there must be even a minimum requirement from you, your own self. So the MLC is not biased in what rights we should be looking at, because the company also should and must employ with the minimum requirements, which is number one. Someone said minimum age. Can someone tell me another one? Minimum age. What's the minimum requirement to work? JJ. I'll start calling in. JJ, Uma, Peter.
The medical certification.
Medical certification. Another one.
Training and qualification.
Training and qualification. And last one.
Recruitment and placement.
Recruitment and placement. Seriously, I like the way you're giving me these answers, but I would really, really like it more when this enters into you and you really get it very, very well. So like I said, that's the part one. Let's go back and this document, I'll ask Captain Tolu to share it as well. Next week, we'll be dealing on the part 2, which will be condition of work as well. Captain Tayo is not here anymore. Does anybody have any question on the introductory and the part 1 quickly?
Sir, I didn't really get what you mentioned. What led to the idea of MLC?
Yeah,
I didn't really get
what led to MLC. I said it's not a popular question, and I gave it up as an exam, as an assignment. I gave it out as an assignment. So I want us to really come back and say and tell me what led to, and I will discuss it in full. Is that understood?
Okay, sir.
That's good. What led to it? Let me know. Any other question? All right, I will hand over to Captain Tolu, but I need to let you know next week we'll come commenting with the part 2. I need us to really understand this part 1. Come in with your questions, but we will also start from feedback from class 1, and I think I'll be asking questions on what we learned on minimum requirements and of course the background of MLC. I'll hand over to Captain Tolu now to round up.
So, background and what led to MLC not today?
Sorry, Omar, come again.
I said, sir, is it next week that we're going to discuss what led to MLC?
Yeah, next week it will be the assignment what led to MLC, and then also the working conditions, which is the part 2 of MLC.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just hand over to Captain Tolu if he wants to round up for us.
Okay, guys, good evening once again. Okay, quite unfortunate. Most time this network issue just keeps popping up. Well, it's not surprising to most of us that come from the same area I come from. Sometimes I just wish I'm in Captain Afolabi's shoe, and he's in UK, I'm in Nigeria. But what can we do now, my brother? We'll all be fine. So sorry about that. We'll continue with the condition that's the Title 2 condition of employment from the next class. Appreciate everyone's time. See you some other time.
All right, thank you very, very much, and see you some other time. I'm sorry for Nigeria, Ghana, but don't worry, we'll get there someday, sometime. All right then, bye. Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Afolabi. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Have a good night rest.
I get to.
Okay, good night, sir.
Good night.